Okay, it has worked in the past. It is time, so we will begin the December meeting of the Mooresville BZA. We have the minutes in front of us. Do we have any additions or corrections? If there are no additions or corrections, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as
We
written.
have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. First item on the agenda is a variance on South Indiana. It's continued from last month. And I have something to say before we start. I've looked into this further since last time, and our UDO says that a petition that has not been acted upon for 2 years is expired at sunset. This petition was filed in '85. There was never a preliminary plan or a secondary plat approval. So to try to get a variance on something here that doesn't exist, because this has to go to planning, because it's expired. We had this issue once on a PUD recently, that they did not do any infrastructure work or anything on the property as far as building it and putting in sewers and everything. So this property needs to go back to planning.
Can I speak to that?
Pardon?
Excuse me, can I speak to that?
Yes.
So this parcel is zoned R3 in the code.
It is.
That's what it's zoned. We are requesting a variance from the R3 zoning. That's all we're asking for. We're asking to variance the code from 3,000 square feet per unit to 2,800 square feet per unit. That's the only thing we're asking for. Everything else has to go through the planning process. So all we're doing is asking for a variance from the R3 zoning that says you can build 1 unit for every 3,000 square feet you have, to a variance to allow 1 unit for every 2,800 square feet that we have. Everything else has to go through the planning process. It has to meet the UDO, parking standards, building standards, all of that we have to meet. We're just asking for a variance on what ends up being the density, but it's not recalled in the UDO a density. It's called a calculation by which you get the allowed uses on the land. We used to do 10 units per acre. Well, now we don't do that. We say you get to have 1 unit for every 3,000 square feet you have. We can do the math and come up with an acreage, but that's the way it's done in the UDO. So we're asking for a variance from that. No other variance are we asking for. We could go in there today and build about 170 units by right, by just coming in and asking for a site plan approval and going through that process.
You'd have to go to planning.
Yes. Site plan approval, same process. Same process we're going to do now. We're just asking for a variance from that requirement of 3,000 square feet to 2,800 square feet.
In past practices, we call this getting the cart in front of the horse.
Can't do that because I can't go to planning. If I go to planning today, I'm required to do 3,000 units, 1 unit for every 3,000 square feet. So if I walked in there with 2,800 square feet, this gentleman over here, which is what I did, said, you need to go to the BZA and get a variance to build units at this density at 2,800 square feet per unit. So I'm here at his request to say, it's R3 zoning, we want a variance from that density to 2,800 square feet. We're actually at 2,850, but it's 2,800 as I wrote it in the petition for the variance. At that point in time, we would have R3 zoning with a variance on the density of 2,800 square feet, and we would start the whole process going to planning and saying, here's our site plan, here's what we want to go through, make sure we don't need any other variances, we meet all the code, go through the planning process to get to a building permit.
Questions, comments from the board?
I would argue that he does not have to come to the planning commission.
Pardon?
Come up.
I would argue that he does not have to come to the planning commission. It's zoned R3. As long as he meets the current UDO, he does not have to come to the planning commission for anything.
The UDO says it's already expired. What is?
The zoning's not expired,
The zoning, yeah, but after you get.
and that's it. That's
No,
it.
After he's got the zoning, he's got to kind of planning, he's got to go through planning.
Where does it say that at, Mike? If I get a piece of property zoned R1 and I want to build a single-family dwelling, the Plan Commission has no control of that. Just like they have no control over him, as long as he meets the UDO and it's zoned R3, which it is, he don't have to come to you guys.
Why then, on a recent petition that was zoned R1C, that they came in and they went to planning?
Are you talking about the PUD?
That was not a PUD.
For one house,
No, for a subdivision.
subdivision, what was it, what did they want it to be?
It was residential.
Okay.
And this is residential. This is multifamily.
Yeah, yes, sir. But it's already zoned. I don't think he has to come to the Plan Commission.
This was zoned, once they got the zoning passed, then they came to the planning commission with a preliminary plat, and then they came back with the secondary plat.
In 1985.
No, just recently.
Oh, no, I'm talking about this one right here. I don't care about that one.
In 85, they only received the zoning and that was it. They didn't have any further action. It did not go to planning back then. That's what I'm saying. It has never been to planning.
I don't think it needs to.
It doesn't have
Why?
to, it doesn't have, it doesn't,
No.
unless there's something in the 1985 ordinance that reverts back to the prior zoning. Once you've zoned, it's zoned.
It's zoned, but it didn't go to the planning commission through primary, secondary plat.
It didn't need to.
It doesn't need to.
There will be no other plat. This is going to be one piece of property, just as it is today. It will be the same deed recorded.
It's not,
Staff will either approve the site plan, or staff will refer it to this board, the plan commission, or the town council, whichever might be appropriate per the UDO. We haven't got to that stage. We're at the stage saying, we want to bring them a plan that shows 180 units, which is equivalent to a density of 2,800 square feet.
You're going to bring a plan to who?
His office.
yeah, whether you guys approve it or not, that's the point, I guess. But the point also is, if it doesn't meet the UDO at that time, when he brings the plan to me, then he'll either come, I'll send him to you here at this BZA or the Plan Commission. It depends on the situation. But you have, if it's zoned R3,
I understand it's zoned R3 and they can do,
okay,
but it was zoned R3 and it had not been acted upon about what they wanted to put there.
And that is correct.
Thank
And
you.
when the new UDO came into being, which was in
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Don't- yeah, something-
Not quite.
when it came in, it was zoned something other than R3, then we would come back to planning. But the planning board chose to zone this parcel R3.
Back in 85.
Yep.
No, they chose to zone it R3 when they passed the UDO and the amended map that passed with the UDO.
Comprehensive
Well, you had your comp plan, then you had a zoning map, and you had the UDO. When you approved that, you solidified that if it was built to the UDO standards, it was a by right. I'm here asking to variance from one of those standards tonight.
Thank you, Tim.
So, last meeting, we heard from the neighbors a couple of things, and from the community, we heard about the proximity to the industrial use to what I would call the east, it might be northeast, however you look, to the east. We also heard concerns about traffic and access. Since that time, we have varied our site plan to move the buildings, the playground, as far away as we possibly can from the industrial use to the east. We have certified that we have 360 parking spots, which is what the UDO calls for, is 2 spaces per every unit. We've also met with the neighbors that have the shared access on the primary access off of Indiana. We've met with them. We have in concept a plan of how we would approach that access point there. We did receive a note back from the town council asking us to look at a entrance through the police station, which you see we've added that, as well as our secondary entrance up by Taco Bell. We would like to have one of those 2 entrances. Again, that's not for the discussion tonight, but we now show that there is 2 other entrances there. I think other than that, The petition is same as it was before. The findings of fact remain the same, and we would ask for approval of the variance to 2,800 square feet per unit tonight. Happy to answer any questions from the board or from the public.
Gentlemen from the commission, questions?
So just to be clear, you're asking to go from 170 units to 180, correct? Okay.
That's what mathematically comes out to, yes.
Other questions from the board?
I'm just going to ask, is the 180 unit, is that a magical number, or where'd that come from?
So these, let me back up here. These workforce housing projects are funded through a federal tax credit and a bond issuance. The bond issuance pays for the construction and is paid off with the tax credits. I know that's getting into the weeds more than you want to hear, but when you do that, the size of deals that the bond issuance and the financiers will look at, the magic number is about 180. Because they want to see projects that are substantial enough for them to put their money into the expense of issuing the bonds and paying the bonds and paying them off. They want the deal size to be so big. We could go to a more expensive market and do a smaller deal. We could go to a less expensive market and have to do a bigger deal to be able to get that dollar amount that would be attractive to the investors. So that's why we're
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or comments? Anyone from the public wish to speak, please come up, state your name and address. Anyone that's in the audience wants to come up?
My name is Kimberly Schofield. I reside at 47 West South Street. It is 4 houses down from the McDonald's, which is at the intersection of Indiana and South Street, which Indiana splits South Street west and east. So it's very, very close to where I live, shop, and my children live. I've been at my residence for 12 and a half years. It's really dense, 180 apartments. I haven't done the math on how many people that's going to be. That's what, 360 cars possibly? There's already a lot of traffic at certain periods of time on Indiana. I don't know what kind of traffic study's been done. We're already having traffic problems in Mooresville. Workforce housing, I would really like that explained. That's like a new term I haven't heard about Mooresville. I just don't think it's good for my neighborhood. I don't understand how 8 buildings, 9 buildings are going to be plopped down in that small area. I don't know if anybody's looked at it. You've got an industrial enterprise on the northeast where this would be, and then all along Indiana and Moore Street, I think that is, are businesses. Kroger lately, probably holiday season, is busy just about every time of the day. Which I'm not against industry and business. I'm not against our town growing, but smart growth. This is not smart growth. And I don't think it's in line with the character of Mooresville. I just think we need to have smart growth. This isn't smart growth. plopping down 8 apartment buildings in an industrial business section part of our town. I'm very against it. And it talks in here about the standards for evaluation, the general welfare of the community. I mean, as a Mooresvillian, it's not good for our general welfare, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak, please?
Good evening. I am Eileen Mathers with my husband, Jim Mathers. We are the owner and operators of Thiesing Veneer Company and the adjacent property owners to the TWG development. Thiesing is a family-owned wood manufacturing company that turned 100 years old in 2020 and has been in Mooresville for 57 years. Thiesing was forced to relocate from McCarty Street, Indianapolis to Mooresville when Interstate 70 came through in 1970. I come tonight with grave concerns related to how this diagram shows apartment placement. When this project got okayed by the board many years ago, Thiesing was uninformed regarding the details of the 1985 rezone to residential. There are several issues we feel are important because of the close proximity to this development. Thiesing generates noise with moving logs and multiple types of equipment, as well as running the sawmill. The garage doors of our building are open most all year because of running several dryers for the wood sheets, allowing noise to escape. We run 2 shifts and have in the past had 3 shifts. The second shift runs till 1 to 2 a.m. We have a smokestack for our wood-fired boiler wood waste silo system. And in past years, we have dealt with neighbor complaints regarding noise that comes from our silo, which is 55 feet in the air. To address this problem, 4 directional hoods were put on the silo facing 67 with no further ability to abate this noise. There is active railroad traffic as well. According to your diagram, there will be 6 3-story units facing our property that could be subject to the above-mentioned issues, and even possibly more than those units as well. Thiesing purchased this building and property from the Mooresville Development Corporation in the early 1960s. We thought the town wanted industrial businesses in the area, but are now very concerned about these apartments and the non-industrial expansion in this area. We feel industrial and residential should not be mixed. I personally called Mike Dellinger of Morgan County Development Corporation after the November BZA meeting to make him aware of the issues our company is faced with intermixing residential and industrial. At the last BZA meeting, it was stated this property was rezoned in 1985 to residential. This property has always been floodplain all the years Thiesing has been here, so why would floodplain be zoned to residential? I got a question about that. The only use for floodplain are agricultural and recreation is what I've always been told. We believe putting apartments in an industrial area is a recipe for problems. As a business, we are well aware of how people begin to complain about the work required by a company that might infringe on them. They begin to complain to local boards and authorities wanting a remedy. Thiesing does not have the personnel, time, or money to defend such complaints that have always existed, but now, because of the large number of residents, we, Thiesing, are the problem. I feel a business wanting to relocate to Mooresville would consider this a negative and look elsewhere. This area should be an economic development business/industrial area. Put up small warehouses and functional office combo space for the entrepreneur looking to start up. Mooresville has many potential other sites where TWG could put apartments that make sense instead of mixing industrial and residential. And I urge the board to deny the variance based on, number one, it is already industrial and could affect a residential community. Number two, the value of our company, Thiesing Veneer, would be affected in a substantially adverse manner. And number three, the fact that this parcel has been floodplain until a couple of years ago when a contractor brought in fill begs the question, how much fill assures no future flooding? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Back in '85, or how much fill needed to be brought in, Mr. Bennett, for it to be up above the floodplain? Pardon?
It has to be built, it has to be up 2 feet above,
Correct.
and that's all regulated by the state. So he has, if this is, even if you don't approve this variance, he still has to work with the state of Indiana in order to have this approved by the floodplain administrator with the state of Indiana.
Okay, I just found it now. 8 to 10 feet of fill to get
No,
it,
it doesn't.
Granting a variance.
to get it
No.
2 feet above.
It's a monster. He has to deal with the state.
Yeah.
Other questions from the board? Comments?
I think a lot of the comments that we're hearing will probably be more germane to the council if they hear this and not the BZA. What they're asking for is a variance for a number of units. I've got concerns, but my concerns aren't germane to this variance that he's asking for. I would encourage the administrator to look at the parking issues and strictly read the UDO because it goes much further than 2 parking spaces per unit if you read further in the narrative. And I would encourage Tim to look into that. That is a 1% flood zone still on the state maps as far as that area. I have no idea what's going to take to alleviate that problem. But again, that's a discussion that's not for BZA. That's for the administrator before it goes to council. So my concerns regarding a variety of things aren't germane to this discussion when it talks about Board of Zoning Appeals. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
I agree with Dave. This is, the question is to go from 170 to 180 units. And I think personally, I'm going to look at it as, you know, is that piece of property going to handle 170 units, you know, effectively? You know, the location and the exits and that kind of thing, let alone 180. Excuse me. So, yeah, I want to make it clear I'm going to consider this only in his request to increase from 170 to 180 units. So.
Other comments, questions? Anyone else from the audience? Public? There are no further questions from the commission or the public. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the variance.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
What was the motion?
They want to approve the
To
variance.
approve.
All those in favor? All those against? You get that, Tammy? Thank you. Now you have to come to planning.
Maybe.
Whatever that gentleman tells me to do.
That concludes the meeting. Is there any new business?
Do you have?
Yeah.
Did you approve this? Did you approve this?
Oh, do we have to approve this? I'm sorry.
Generally.
Okay. We have a schedule here for next year's time frame of when the meetings are.
Just BZA's half.
The BZA is on the left and the planning commission on the right. Do I have a motion to approve the schedule of the meetings for next year?
I make a motion to approve the schedule as presented.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Other new business or old business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.